spiritual oneness with spiritual consciousness. If you have it here on earth, you will rise to a high level. If you do not have it, of course your consciousness will be of a lower nature, a grosser nature, and you will be on a different level entirely. So we read the Master's words as follows. Developed spirits are guided on the other side, not by the physical eye, so to speak, or intelligence, but by spiritual consciousness at this point, kutestha consciousness, a consciousness of the single eye. In meditation you will perceive that consciousness, and you will know from the presence of God within you, that spiritual consciousness. So that consciousness is what will guide you on the other side. Also, the second thing is different grades of acquired intuition. So when you meditate a lot and deeply and perceive at this point the spiritual consciousness, you acquire the power of that consciousness and different grades of intuition. Therefore, that will guide you on the other side, nothing else. So you must know those things right here and now. These conscious spirits can feel themselves embodied in the subtle and causal bodies and can analyze the constituent parts of the same. Now, when you meditate and see the spiritual eye, you can analyze it, can't you? And you're not seeing it with your physical eyes, you're seeing it with the eye of intuition. And you will see it sometimes go in and out or sideways, so you can analyze it. So on the other side, being used to your luminous body, you can still go on analyzing it and knowing about it. Is that clear? That's what you can do on the other side, those who are conscious as they leave this body. And finally, these spirits, owing to their practice, while in physical existence, in controlling the subtle forces, that's what you do in meditation, nothing else. Those who do that can control these forces even after they are disembodied. Why not know that? Then you can go on consciously going up and up into God's presence. But you cannot do it unless you know it while you're living in this vehicle. How can you step from something into something else when you don't know it? It's impossible. So realize these things. Realize the Master's words, if you remember nothing else this morning, that those who try by regular devotional yogic methods to know death, they are the ones who will know it and will be conscious after death. Now we come to another question. What determines the length of time a soul remains in the astral? Well, I have answered that partly in the previous question. It is that time is determined by karmic influence. And I'll give you two illustrations. If you are a struggling soul wanting to know God, and you get on the other side, you will get immediate rebirth so that you can go on with your spiritual evolution. God is absolutely just. And so if you are struggling, you won't have to wait a long time to get another vehicle, because this vehicle is the only thing we can know God with. Realize that. That's why we must preserve it. We must utilize it and utilize it to know Him. And so realize that. If you are a struggling soul, when you pass through the change of death, immediately you'll get another vehicle so that you can go on with it. Now, on the other hand, if you're disgusted with life and you have committed suicide, it'll take a long time. You so hate the body, you don't want anything more to do with it. And so those impulses are lodged in the subconscious mind and in the luminous body of which I have spoken, and the causal body. They're there. And so you'll have to wait a long time before you get rebirth. Now, going on just a bit, I have one thing to read here of what the Master has to say about that. Those who are unconscious. Remember, the question is, what determines the length of time the soul remains in the astral? First two things, those who are conscious and unconscious. Those who are unconscious, we read as follows. The subtle law of the subtle world influences them and helps them on to be reborn through forces acting on them without their knowledge. The universal law, this thing just didn't happen, this great universe. You don't have to worry about, you'll get a vehicle all right, but it'll be according to law and you won't know anything about it. And so the Master says the universal law buys for the unconscious spirits the kind of clothes, that is, the physical bodies, which they desire to wear according to the karma of their previous lives. There is no power or benefit of choice given to them because they are unconscious. And another thing is this, that unless these spirits altogether become dissolved in Brahma or spirit, they have to take rebirth sooner or later. As long as there's any little desire there, as long as there's something which hasn't been fulfilled, you have to come back and fulfill it. But when you fully are satisfied in the spiritual consciousness of God, then you do not have to come back, but can stay and remain eternally with God. Now going on, just one other point on this question, which is very interesting about the unconscious spirit. What determines the length of time? We find as follows. These are the words the Master gave us years ago. They're very interesting. The father buys clothes for his little children. So does the universal law provide new bodies to unconscious disembodied souls. That is, we're taken care of. We take care of our own families, do we not? You know your father provided for you, mine did for me. And so God provides for his children. And the unconscious ones are taken care of by the universal law, according to their karmic influence. If they, as I have said, if they are struggling to know God, they will soon be taken care of, even though they're unconscious. But if they don't care anything about it, dislike it,